This day in history in 5 minutes or less. Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of This Day in History in 5 minutes or less. Our topic is focused on May 29th, 1886. So the pharmacist John Pemberton places his first advertisement for Coca-Cola, which appeared in the Atlanta Journal. So I am joined by my guest today, Jessie. Jessie is a clinical pharmacist and a friend of mine, and she's awesome. So Jessie, thanks so much for being on today.
No problem. Thanks for having me, Danielle.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure. Now, you're a pharmacist, and were you aware? Like, I know rumors have been going around, like, and maybe it's not a rumor, maybe I just didn't do my research, but like, cocaine was originally a part of the recipe, and soda was supposedly had medicinal properties anyway because the carbonation, like, they thought it would settle stomachs, and caffeine helped with headaches and that kind of stuff. Like, were you aware that that was a thing back when Coca-Cola first came on the market?
Yeah, a lot. I think I know about just as much about the true history as you do. But I had always heard the same rumors that, early medicinal use of Coca-Cola had cocaine in it.
Mhm.
And it's not that hard to believe because if you actually look at a lot of like antique medicines or medicines as they evolved in history, we used to use a lot of things that we wouldn't use currently to treat different disease states. For example, I know that we used to use tobacco cigarettes to actually treat a lot of disease states, including asthma, which of course we know now isn't going to be helpful. So it wouldn't surprise me if it's true, but I can't validate that it really
Dang
is or
it,
isn't.
because I'm all for um, positive medical uses of tobacco, and I'm going to tell Vanessa that, and that's amazing. Vanessa's a mutual pharmacist friend of ours. That's right. Now, you mentioned something about like we still use certain drugs like that have recreational use, but they are
Oh
used
yeah.
medicinally.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of drugs like that. I mean, if you take cocaine just in general, we from like the original plant, the coca plant that it came from, we got I think like an ethyl bromide ring from it, and so what that is used now to make a lot of things we use currently is to use topical anesthetics. So if you've ever heard of
Oh,
the drugs like lidocaine,
yeah.
like I know you can buy lidocaine patches like at your drugstore, or we use a lidocaine, ropivacaine, bupivacaine a lot for anesthetic use for procedures. Those are all related to cocaine, and that's something that we've evolved from the original moiety. And then, like other examples, like a big one that you've probably heard of that's used recreationally is ketamine.
Hmm.
Ketamine has a lot of medicinal uses. So we use it for sedation in the operative room and in the ICU. We use it for pain relief. It's really good for chronic pain or people that are
When
resistant to pain
prescribed, listeners, when
when
prescribed.
prescribed. Yeah, and closely monitored by a healthcare professional. But,
Yeah.
there's obviously a lot of, good uses of the safe use of medication.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So this day in history is particularly around like the first advertisements that kind of came out for that. And if I can find that first one that actually went up in the Atlantic Journal, I'll actually throw it up on the last page for you guys to see it. If you don't see it, it's because I didn't find it or I drank too much bourbon tonight at my show, and I didn't have time to look for it before the episode went live. But it's worth a Google. I love drug advertisements though. I think they're a lot of fun. My favorite ones are like the commercials for like ED medicine, and you see like the 400-year-old guy with like a 30-year-old woman, and like he's keeping up with her on the beach and stuff like that because of these ED meds. I always think that's a lot of fun. Do you have any favorites? Do you have any favorite advertisements that are for drugs that stand out, or slogans even for drugs?
Yeah, I think it's funny you bring that up because I feel like in all of those advertisements, it's marketing, so you see a lot of like societal norms pushed on you. So like, what came immediately in my mind was like all the Hims and Hers ads. So it's just hilarious that Hims is growing back topical finasteride to grow back hair or erectile dysfunction drugs, whereas all the Hers are like antidepressants and weight loss drugs and just really all the medications that probably aren't super feminist. So
Yeah.
it's kind of funny the way that modern marketing really dictates the way sometimes medicines are used in America, at least.
No, it makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the last question that all of our guests get asked, Jesse, if you could go back in history and kill anybody, Who you taking out, girl?
First off, I'd like to say I'm a lover, not a hater. So I wouldn't probably kill anyone because I think that the butterfly effect is real. And so if I went back in history and killed somebody, I'd probably fuck something else up, you
Yeah.
know? But if I have to give an answer, I just to pick a fun one, I'll probably just pick. I looked it up. Frank Blackmore. It's not definitive, so if I went back and murdered him for this, then I might be wrong. So that's a risk I take. But he might have invented roundabouts, and I just really hate roundabouts.
All
I
right,
know that
Frank.
they're
Fuck
supposed to
you
be
for
faster.
roundabouts.
Fuck you for roundabouts. They're a pain in
Yeah.
the ass.
They are, you know what? That might be my favorite answer to this question to date. I love it. Well, Jesse, thank you so much for being my guest on here. And y'all, this has been another episode of This Day in History in 5 minutes or less.